Today's guest is a financial industry disruptor. He's helped clients overcome their financial fears and dispel bad advice so they can build the financial future they desire. He's an award-winning wealth advisor and has been featured on the Forbes 2018 Top 1,000 list of next-gen wealth advisors. Please welcome Chris White to the show. Hey there.
Hey, Jill. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
So this is something that I feel like a lot of people ask me about is about finances and, getting into it because there is so much out there by a lot of people that are not licensed like we are,
Right.
that, say certain things. So I really want to get your viewpoint of so many things today. So let's get started with what prompted you to start in the financial industry.
Yeah, so I had an interesting route to actually get into the financial services world. Back when I was in college, I went to the University of Tennessee, and I was minding my own business walking across campus one day, and this young lady walked up and she said, "Do you want to make $7,000 this summer?" And I said, "Yeah, I do."
Yeah,
So,
yes, please.
Yes, that would be great, because I was broke and I was paying my way through school, and so she recruited me to do this crazy summer internship deal where we went and did direct sales and sold products door to door. And so did that for 4 years while I was at UT, and then a couple of years when I was out as a sales manager, recruiting, training students to go run their own business across the country. And so once I wrapped that up after those summers, I was introduced to a sister company that was under this kind of holding company. And it was a financial services group. And I really didn't know hardly anything about finance outside of, my dad helped me start a savings account when I was a kid, and then a checking account. And then he bought me like 2 shares of AOL one Christmas to try to teach me about stocks. But I just didn't know a whole lot about it. In fact, when I got my first mortgage, which was right when I got into the industry, the mortgage professional said, it's our fiduciary responsibility to serve you. And he said, "Well, you know what that means. You're in the financial services world." I said, "No, I actually don't." So that gives you an idea of how much I actually knew, which was not much of anything. But thankfully, I'd had a lot of formative training in sales, and knew that I could work really hard, knew that I could study and learn all this stuff, and here we are almost 15 years later. So yeah.
That's awesome. What do you think that you would have done if you hadn't have gone into financial services? Was there anything else that you were like, I would love to do this too?
Not really. My dad, he's had an independent insurance practice for 42 or 43 years now, and so that would have been an option where I could have gone into the family business. But I didn't really have a passion behind insurance per se. And when I got started in this business, I didn't really necessarily have a passion behind finance. So I don't know exactly what I would have done. I've always been intrigued by flying. So it would have been fun to maybe get into, get my private license and, I don't know, go out and do some kind of flying, instructing, a flight school. I don't know exactly. So
That'd be so cool.
I'm grateful that I'm in the finance world because it's been a pretty good fit for sure.
Yeah. People are always very interested when I talk about like my former jobs, like when I worked at the coroner's office and how that ultimately led to being in the financial services world. And people are like, how is that even the same? So I always ask financial people, I'm like, so is there anything that's the same with you in the same way? So
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So tell me, I know that you meet with a lot of businesses and
Mhm.
a lot of businesses have been through the ringer over the last couple years. What do you think is the thing that people are struggling the most with kind of now on the other side of COVID?
Mm. Yeah, I think what I see in the conversations that I have with those that we get to serve, business owners, entrepreneurs, creators, and then just other folks that are in our network, other business owners that we're connected with. It's two things that I see mainly. Number one is supply chain. Supply chain's absolutely messed up right now, and there's really no change in sight. per se for a while. In fact, I've got a good buddy who runs a business that they do exports, or actually imports rather, from overseas, China, Taiwan, that those areas. And he said not till probably early 2023 do they expect the supply chain to get straightened out a bit. And so that I think is one of the major issues. And talking with clients, we've got clients. A lot of them are the ones that I'm thinking of right now with the supply chain issues are in the construction world. And these guys, they can't get fasteners for roofs. They just can't get the supplies, and the supplies that they can get are costing, 2, 3, 4 times what they were costing before. But they are literally, some of these products are not even in the United States right now. And so supply chain has been a really big thing that we've seen with those that we're connected with. And then the second part is just shortage of personnel, shortage of the workforce. I was talking with our chiropractor here just a couple of days ago, and I saw that there was for truck drivers, for CDL folks, an $8,000 signing bonus on one of these signs when I drove by on the interstate the other day. And we were in Florida a couple of weeks ago, and there was a $2,000 signing bonus for waiters and waitresses. And it's gotten to that level where folks can't find great talent, and then when you find it, they're not able to retain it. And so really, really big challenges. Those are the two probably biggest things that I see with those that we're connected with and get to serve.
Well, and I feel like too, probably now with everything that's happened, people are really probably evaluating their benefits that they can get through
Mhm.
work, which I feel like is a good place where you can jump in and help businesses, right? Because it's evaluating those things, making sure that they've got the ability to retain that amazing talent when they do attract those people.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And that's why, having a great benefits package, whether it's, in our world, 401k, disability policies, these kind of things, great health insurance. And it's incredibly important, especially on that healthcare side of stuff, because as you well know, it can be an absolute mess if you don't have group benefits. And so yeah, you're exactly right.
Now, what do you think it is when you're visiting with business owners? What do you think people they fear most about building their financial future? Because sometimes when I talk with people, it's like, "Oh, I'll get to it later," and we all
Mhm.
know that time waits for no man, so got to
Yes,
get on it
yes.
right away. What are your thoughts about that?
So I think you really hit the nail on the head there. I think folks believe that they have plenty of time to do it. And as a husband and a daddy of 4 kids, I can tell you time is clipping by at a rapid pace. And as you said, it doesn't stop for anybody. And so I think people think that they have a lot of time, and that time's really not there. And not to be morbid, but we don't know how much time we've got here on this planet. And so there are so many examples out there where people, lost their lives, and whatever fashion it was, and they just hadn't done that planning because they thought they had the time to do it. I think the other thing that I think of in that context is uh, getting your financial house in order. In our world, with planning, and wealth advisory, the comprehensive financial plan is actually 8 pieces. Most people only think of investments and retirement. Most people, when they talk about a financial advisor, they talk about my guy that does my investments, or my gal, or our team, or whatever the case. But there's actually 8 pieces. And so to do it well and to be very well prepared and have a great plan requires time. It requires the necessary resources to put into developing that plan. And I think folks see that and they go, "Oh, that's a heavy lift." Or you get these a lot of business owners, entrepreneur folks that go, "I don't have the time to do it. I'm focused. I'm blinders. I'm doing what I'm good at, and I don't have the time to do all this other stuff." And really, not to sound cliche and cheesy, but they can't afford not to do it. And that is the reality, because yeah, if you don't do the planning, everybody's got a plan, but it's whether have you taken the time to put a plan together, or is the plan just going to play out the way that the system, the government, or whatever you want to call it, has laid out that plan for you if you don't have one. So, yeah, those are things I think of.
What do you think that if someone is overwhelmed, so let's say that we've got a business owner, they're super busy, they've got a lot going on, what do you think are some easy things that they could prepare because they know they want to move forward, they know they want to grow their business, they know that they need to have all these things done, but it's just a matter of like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. What are some things that would be easy for them to maybe, do small steps?
Yeah. Uh, I what first comes to my mind is having the right team around you. So oftentimes we see folks that have kind of cobbled things together, right? So they will, um, they do it themselves on the investment side, or maybe they've done some estate planning, or they've got a CPA, or whatever the case. I think it really starts at getting the right professionals in place, which is a challenge. And there are I think there's 300,000 plus financial planners or advisors in the United States. So finding the right person, the right fit, can absolutely be a challenge. The same can be said with any of the other professionals. But I think it's worth the time. I think it's worth the effort to find that right team. And again, just doing it kind of small steps, find that right person. And from my vantage point, I think it's crucially important to have the right team in place, and that team be collaborative on behalf of that client, of that person. And so, where I think people can do a great job finding that team, but the problem is they don't actually work as a team. They're just siloed out in their respective industries, and they don't actually collaborate on behalf of the client, which we all know is not effective. It's not efficient. Things are lost through the cracks. It's like the telephone game, right? And you end up spending more time and more resources when, if you had a great team around you in the first place that were coordinated and collaborating on your behalf, you'd be in a much better spot.
I agree. That's something that we talk about all the time on this
Mm.
podcast is getting your team together, getting them to communicate with each other. What do you think are some ways if someone's like, "Okay, I know I need these people in my life. I need to create my team, but I don't have one. Where do I start looking? What's the best place?"
Hmm. I might be a little biased in this, in my answer, full disclosure, but I think starting with a really good financial planning team is, because the way that we view it anyway is we are the quarterback in the situation, right? So, and because of from our perspective, we're seeing all the pieces of the puzzle. So we're seeing the retirement, the investments, the tax, the estate, the charitable, the insurance, the cash flow, the education. So those are our eight main pieces. We're seeing all of that from a kind of the bird's eye view. And so I believe bringing in a great financial planning team at the forefront. And again, it's got to be the right team that's got the knowledge, has the expertise, has the experience, but is willing to play well with other professionals. And that's a challenge. That's a really big challenge, to find those right people to put around the table that are going to be collaborative. But I think starting with a financial planning team and then building out around there, and really having the financial planning team help you build it out. I think that to me is a good place to start.
I think that's a good place to start too, because then you can branch out and then it's really talking about how, okay, we have this team in place. Now we're going to add our attorneys. We're going to add,
Mhm.
any CPAs, anybody else. But then it's really saying, hey, I'm looking for someone to work together with my financial planning team. Is that something that you can do? If not, totally okay. But
Mhm.
this is what we're going for, is a whole team of people that are looking out for a business owner and their family to make sure that
Mhm.
everything is taken care of. I love that.
That's
Now,
right.
on the flip side of that, what do you think is the number one mistake that you see business owners? Because I know you work with a ton of people. What's the mistakes that you see consistently happening over and over that might prevent someone listening to this podcast say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that. I'm not going to make that same mistake."
Mm. Um, you know, One of the things that we see is we help quite a few people unravel. Um, I don't want to call them bad choices, but it's probably bad advice. And so they've gotten advice from somebody, and and oftentimes that person carries shame into the situation because they're going, oh my goodness, I made this choice. I shouldn't have done this, made this decision, which really it's not on them. They took the best, advice and the best information they had and made the decision. So I think if folks could maybe spend a little bit more time in their due diligence process when they're interviewing the professionals, and making sure that they are only utilizing solutions that are the right fit for them, that they understand. I think far too often people buy things that they don't understand, and that can get them into trouble. So, and the challenge with that is that you come to a professional because of their expertise, because of their experience, and you want to trust that professional. But unfortunately, there are a lot of folks in our industry that don't have people's best interest at hand, unfortunately, and they're still somehow are still operating and running businesses. And so, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. I think another thing too that I'll share is I think a lot of folks put things on autopilot, and they don't review on a consistent basis. I think a great relationship with a team, whether it is with the financial planning team or CPA or state planning attorney, your business attorneys, whatever the case, I think having a consistent review schedule is really, really important, because there are tweaks and changes that need to be made over time. Sometimes, we'll have review meetings with folks, and there aren't really many tweaks and changes that need to be made, but we had a meeting this morning with a family that we've been serving for goodness 10 or 12 years. And we just had a couple small tweaks, but they're going to make a difference. And we were talking through some new strategies that we talked about a little bit in the past, but now they really made sense in their situation. And so I think just that consistent client service from our side of the table, I think is really important. And that's a mistake I think a lot of people make on the client side and also on the advisor side.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I was going to say the same thing, where people, whether it's a will or a financial plan or whatever the case may be, it's a set it and forget it, when really this is something that we need to be active in. We need to be reviewing those insurance policies. We need to be reviewing those investments and making sure that everything is where it needs to be, because life changes and we can't expect our financial professionals, our CPAs, our attorneys to know that things have changed in our lives if we
That's
don't
right.
tell them. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think
Mhm.
I think it's huge that people, life changes, babies are born, divorces
Yes.
happen, whatever the case may be. Sometimes we think of it as just the big stuff, but really the little things can change too. So I really think that that's a huge thing. Do you think that people should do that annually? Like, what's the schedule that you think is good for people to get into the habit of?
Yeah, I think at a minimum annually is a really good rhythm. We've got some clients we've been working with for 10 plus years that we meet probably every 18 months or 2 years, and that's just a schedule that they prefer. Now we end up talking quite a bit more than that, but from a probably 4, 5, 6 times a year, but actually sitting down and doing a good comprehensive review, it's a little bit longer for those guys. But a lot of it depends on the complexity of the situation as well. But we like to try to connect at least once a year, but oftentimes we're doing it more than that.
Absolutely. Now, this is kind of a hot button issue, but
Okay.
I like to bring it up because I think it's so important, because there's so much information out on the internet about
Mhm.
finances and investments, and some of those things are given out by non-licensed people, and I don't think that people even realize that that's a thing, that there's those of us that are licensed, that have continuing education, that we're constantly educating ourselves, and those other folks that don't go through that process. Where do you think the best place for people to get reliable financial information is?
Mhm. Um, and you mean up to the minute, accurate, not necessarily, books that were written 15 years ago kind of stuff.
I know,
Um,
I feel like it would be like, check with your financial person. Like that's the first stop, the first call that you want to make if you're
Yeah.
like, hey, I want to invest in this. That's the
Yeah.
newest, latest, greatest thing, the GameStop stock or whatever,
Right.
call your person. But I know people are out and about on the internet looking at things, and there's a lot of awesome marketing people that talk about
Mhm.
financial stuff that are not
Yeah.
licensed. So if people don't have a person yet, where's a good place to find that?
Yeah, I would say probably, go into Google and searching some of this stuff. The challenge is, so my answer is go to your financial planning team. But if you don't have one of those, going to to the internet is a fine place to do it. The challenge with it, however, is that you get so much information. You can't, first of all, you can't trust all of it. Some of it's outdated. Occasionally we'll have something we look up, and I'll have to go through 4, 5, 6 different white pages to find actually what I'm looking for, because some of the information might have been written in 2017, and that information's long outdated, and depending on the context. And so and there are some folks that on the radio that I think are probably worthwhile to listen to, whether it's Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey is a local guy here, and he does have some good stuff there that he shares. Money Wise with Rob West, who's with Kingdom Advisors. They've got some great stuff. And there's lots of folks that are kind of in that space. But I do think that the internet's is an okay place to do it, but you just got to be careful. You got to be really, really careful. And also, I mean, today, in the day of YouTube, there are folks that actually put out very, very good content, which oftentimes you can find through LinkedIn, or you can go directly to YouTube, where they'll have some great content from people that are reputable. And I think that's the key. It's finding someone that's reputable, that actually knows their craft and knows what they're talking about. And if you get a piece of information, make sure you vet it out through multiple resources if you're not using a financial planning team. Because I've heard of people that are, they'll glom onto this one strategy, and maybe it's a tax strategy, and they do it, and then 2, 3, 4 years later they get they get hit for it. And so I think you want to take your time, do your due diligence, especially if you're going out trying to find that information on your own.
And I think that just brings it back to the value of having a team of people to ask.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people that the value of having an attorney that you can call is, you don't know what you don't know. So you've got
Yeah.
to ask the questions. Sometimes you don't know what questions to ask. So you could start with the internet, kind of do a little bit of Google research, but then follow that up with presenting it to your team, your financial
Mm-hmm.
planning team, whoever that team is, to say, hey, listen, I did some research, I looked at this, and let those experts help you vet that out and say, yeah, actually, that was super popular back in
Mm-hmm.
2017.
Right.
Not so much anymore.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I think that, again, yeah, going back to vetting things out, it's so important. Get multiple opinions, get multiple viewpoints. Again, if you don't have a team, if you got a team, trust the team that they're going to take care of you, and they do have your best interest at hand.
Absolutely. What is one piece of advice that you would give to a small business owner?
Oh, one piece of advice that I would give to a small business owner. It's never as good as it seems, and it's never as bad as it seems. Um,
Fun.
and I can just share that from personal experience. In our vocation here, and what I did before in the direct sales world, it's never as good as it seems, and it's never as bad as it seems. And I think that's just important for us all to remember. And even in your best days, or your worst days, it's a good thing to remember. Um, I think for me too, I think there's a lot of value in working on the business as a business owner, and not getting stuck in the business. For us, I mean, when that clicked for us, and we shifted from always being in the business, but actually stepping back and working on the business, it made a really big difference for us as well, and it makes things more enjoyable, as you work in the business because you've worked on it.
Absolutely. Now, where can people find out more about you and your work? And if they are like, yes, Financial planning team, that is what I need. Where can I find you to start to work with you?
Yeah, so chroniclepartners.com. So that's the name of our company, Chronicle Partners. And so yeah, chroniclepartners.com. We're on LinkedIn. We are starting to do a little bit better job on the social media side of things too. But chroniclepartners.com is the best place to find us.
Perfect. And for anybody listening, I'm going to go ahead and link all of his links so you can find him quick and easy in the show notes. So if you have any questions, make sure you reach out to him because, again, building your team is one of the most important things that you can do to support your business, whether you want to scale it or just keep it where it's at. Thank you so much again for being here today. I really appreciate it.